I was going to cover the last week in British politics with the headline that the Labour Party had a very bad week. And then the French government collapsed. Twice. So, if there's one thing that the Brits can take comfort in, at least they're not the French. As for us Americans, we just have troops on the streets. There's nothing to see here, moving right along. Last week, Labour held their once-a-year conference to reaffirm their beliefs and make their case to Britain for their policies. And then on Thursday, when the Brits went to the polls, they elected Reform for 6 of 7 seats, and the one seat that Labour held onto, they held onto it by 63 votes. So, regardless of what I think, the British public heard what was on offer and picked anything but that. On the plus side, my video titled "The Far Right Will Win in the UK" has aged very well and will continue to age well. The far right will continue to win, even if the French government has to collapse right afterwards to make everything about the French. But back to the UK. Gary Stevenson posted an interesting question this week, which is Labour unlucky, or is it just rubbish? I think the verdict here, according to the voters, is that they're rubbish. If necessary, Donald Trump can drive into the UK with a garbage truck and pick them up, but I think if they're given a few years, the Brits can handle this all by themselves. And moreover, Labour just had an opportunity to change course and become more popular. That's kind of what the Labour conference is for. It's a huge marketing opportunity. It's a huge moment for there to be national coverage, for Kier Starmer to stand in front of the British public and say exactly what they're going to be doing that is going to be so popular that Labour is going to be a much more popular party than it was 3 months ago. Instead, he got up and said that Britain has a choice. And the problem for him is that it seems the British public is not choosing Labour. Quick politics advice: if you or your party needs to frame the election as a choice, you're not doing well. Your party ought to be so popular and your agenda ought to be so good that you can present your agenda as exactly what's going to happen and your win as, frankly, inevitable. As a nonpartisan economist, I can simply predict what's going to happen. But if you're willing to do the classical political maneuver called lying, that works too. One of the tragedies of the Labour agenda is that it's not bad, but it is bland, like boiled cabbage bland. For example, online healthcare is actually a pretty good idea. More available online healthcare should do some combination of improving healthcare quality and reducing queues. It's just that when people look at the NHS and see that it's spectacularly deteriorating, and then some suit says, we're not going to fix that, but we're going to make this shiny new online portal, that's not going to address people's concerns, is it? Labour's proposals are classic win-win economics. The problem for Labour is that win-win economics is on the decline for most people, and conversely, zero-sum economics is on the rise. Their win-win proposals are facing diminishing returns, and taking things away from, for example, immigrants has never been more lucrative. One example of this is when Labour tried to cut the universal credit this year. They were trying to save about £300 million every year, but when there were objections over who was going to get those cuts, they had to settle for a substantial fraction of that. But looking at who gets the universal credit and for how much, immigrants get about 10 billion pounds every year for their universal credit. And so using zero-sum economics, reform can easily get the savings labor can't achieve. Similarly, if you want to go in a different direction with zero-sum economics, a 1% wealth tax on assets 10 million pounds or more would raise about 12 billion pounds. But labor doesn't seem to want to do that either. It's like there's a post up ahead and labor doesn't want to dodge left or right, so it's instead going to cop it straight to the knackers. And to make matters worse, the Conservatives did the exact same thing last cycle, and they're still wheezing on the ground. So it's like Labor looked at that and said, I want that too. Nutshots for all the parties in Britain. And if that's what they wanted, last week was just a small preview of what hitting that post looks like.